Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health TV and radio show. I'm your host, SaraBanta. I'm a health coach, natural supplement expert, and a busy mom of three. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you're notified every week with my new podcasts on Mondays and Tuesdays. And if you haven't already, join my free group coaching on Telegram with the link below. There is no downside. I teach you on a daily basis with tips and tools to enhance your health, and you will be a part of a like-minded group to support you on your journey, in addition to truly taking control of your health. The protocols and supplements we discuss are all found at SaraBantaHealth.com. Today we have Dr. Todd. He was the first in his class in high school and at Northwestern University, and was accepted after 2 years of college to the premier program at Johns Hopkins Medical School. I don't think he's any dummy. He then did further training at Georgetown in internal medicine and pulmonary and intensive care medicine. He's become a leader in laser biophysics research and has developed a stem cell protocol that has reversed biological age at the DNA level more than any other method in medical history. Welcome, Dr. Todd. How are you today?
Hey, I'm styling. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm feeling 3 years younger. I actually am laughing because I'm 47 years old, and I had a girlfriend this morning, ironically, said to me, Sara, what are you going to do for your 50th birthday? It's coming up. And I thought, well, I don't even really think that far ahead. But Dr. Todd, because of you, I may never turn 50, right? So anyways, we're going to get into that as we go along. And I want to first start out with the fact that Accelerated Health Products has been founded on the trademark saying of increase your frequency. And that means, living life at a higher level, not being low level, in body, mind, and spirit. You've got to have a strong foundation in order to have your spiritual and mental growth. And this all connects. And that's why I think you and I connected so well when we met, because we're so aligned, not just physically and wanting to anti-age, but mentally and spiritually. So we're going to get into all of this. As we begin, why don't you just introduce yourself to everybody and what you're doing in the area of cell regeneration and reverse aging?
Sure. My pleasure to share all those things, especially those that have a passion for living a very long time at higher degrees of function in an incredibly youthful body. So I've been passionate about lasers, magnetics, and DNA since I was in grade school. So that's where it all began. I was literally studying lasers when I was 8 years old. I could tell you what laser meant. It's an acronym. And all those interests really occurred all the way through my university training, through my medical training at Johns Hopkins, then my advanced training in internal medicine and pulmonary and critical care medicine at Georgetown University Hospital. So I'm highly trained in the medical world, the Western medical world, even at the highest level of doing intensive care medicine. And then I got inspired through an esoteric and kind of wild backstory to really understand more the energetic nature of things, the frequency nature of things, and really the multi-layered dimensionality of our reality. And as a byproduct of that, I was inspired to create a new type of laser technology that is only laser in the sense is that it starts with a laser light source. And then we've created an optical invention that shifts the way the wave patterns relate to each other that allows us to send a signal much more deeply through the body. And in the very first experiment we did with that technology, where a colleague of mine at the NIH gave me some flasks of stem cell-like cells from the bone marrow, that we saw that one day after we shined the laser through different flasks for different times, that in every flask the cells had lined up where the beam had been. We had stumbled upon what you could call literally singing the song of the stem cells in light. And that really addresses a huge problem in the cellular therapy world, which is just because you give the cells doesn't mean they go where you want them to go, much less do what you want them to do. So we've created literally what you could call a laser guidance signal or a homing signal to increase the likelihood that stem cells go where you want them to go. And then the second eureka moment, that was a pretty impressive one with our first experiment. It's like, oh yeah, we're on to something. That a more recent one was learning about a very powerful and interesting type of stem cell, something unexpected. Because when I began working with the idea of directing stem cells, it's not just providing stem cells to replace worn out cells. If you're going to replace them, you want them to be young cells. And most of the types of stem cells in the body, just like the body itself, undergo an aging process and tend to become less potent. So I was thrilled. I was like, oh my God, that whatever you want to call it, source energy has given us this amazing solution, this amazing characteristic of our biology. And fundamentally, there is a type of cell, which is a long word, VSEL, that we simply abbreviate V cells. I won't go into the long technical side of it. For all intents and purposes, the description of these cells is they're formed early in gestation. They are just past the earliest stage cells, and they're called pluripotent, which means that they literally can become any of the three germ layers, which then make all the cells of the body. So by extension, these cells can literally make any type of the hundreds of cells that comprise our whole biological makeup. And the most unique part of it, the OMFG part of it, is that for unknown reasons, these cells, which are incredibly powerful, go into hibernation around the time that we're born. So even though all the other cells of the body are aging, because they're metabolically asleep, they're not dividing, their telomeres aren't shortening, their epigenetic patterns aren't getting older. So no matter how old a person is, these cells remain incredibly biologically young. Not only that, the cells are very small. And by that, the measure is about 1 to 2 microns. To put it in perspective, other types of stem cells, like the ones derived from fat, are 12 to 30 microns long. The reason it makes a difference is if you give those cells systemically, the big cells get stuck in the 6 micron capillaries in the lung. I better know that. I'm a pulmonary specialist by training. And the 1 to 2 micron cells are actually about the quarter of the diameter of a red blood cell. So they easily pass through the lung circulation and can go everywhere from head to toe because they're so young. And so much at the pinnacle of how we start from a single cell and go to all the cells, that we think it's doing more than replacing adult cells in the body with young cells. We believe that we are reverse aging the stem cell pools in the body as well. So to make a new cell, you can actually make a new cell with a younger cell than you did before. For 2 years, we've had what's called epigenetic biological age testing. That's a mouthful, which looks at the most accurate clock of biologic aging that's been developed so far. And when we began, we were really surprised to see that if in the past 5 years someone had one treatment, they were 3 years younger biologically than the chronologic age. And if they hadn't had a treatment, they're usually the same biologically, or even a little bit older biologically than their birthday. What got really fun was that with 2 treatments, they were 6 years younger, and with 4 treatments, they were 12 years younger. So this is more than has been seen with other methods. Some will give 3 to 5 years of age reversal. However, they don't necessarily stick over a period of time. That can regress back to the person's chronologic age. But this method doesn't seem to do that, at least with the data we have thus far.
Okay, I have so many questions and points that I want to emphasize. Okay, so pluripotent. This is really important for you all to understand that when you are getting the traditional type of stem cell treatment, they are number one, mature cells, and number two, they are not pluripotent. So can you go through what a typical stem cell treatment is doing and emphasize the difference again, because this is huge. And because people like my dad, who has neuropathy, he's looked at all of the best doctors in the United States and in Europe and who's providing the best stem cell treatments. And so he thinks he knows everything about all that's out there. And of course he doesn't, because he has not met you. So let's get into what your pluripotent embryonic cells, which is such a cool thought, that my embryonic cells that haven't been tarnished or used or have any toxicity to them like every other cell in my body, are now being regenerated in my body. And I've hinted at this, you guys, but yes, I did Dr. Todd's stem cell treatment 21 days ago. So that is 3 weeks ago, and I'll go into my results in a minute, but want to really, really understand the difference between a typical stem cell treatment and your treatment.
Mm-hmm. That's probably the most important question. And I would say the biggest problem, at least in terms of understanding, is that there are many types of stem cells in the body. And by calling them all stem cells, they all sound like they're the same thing and do similar activities. So to really know what you're getting into and whether you should say yes to stem cells, whether it's a good fit for you, it's really useful to understand the whole environment and especially realize that all stem cells are not the same. They're different types of stem cells that are designed to do different things. If you give me a moment, I will outline the hierarchy. At the very beginning, in the first few replications after the fertilization process has occurred, those earliest cells are called true embryonic stem cells. And they're incredibly powerful. They're called totipotent, means they can make everything, which also means they can make a whole new person. So this little group of cells up to about 30, if you put them in 30 welcome uteri that were capable of carrying a term, you could literally make 30 whole new people from it. So that's totipotent. The challenge is they're so powerful that they can sometimes form tumors called teratomas. And that's really weird because these are fundamentally weird constructions of all sorts of different tissues. And for example, you could have a cantaloupe-sized giant hairball with skin and teeth and nails and muscle and bone and cartilage and all the tissues swirled together. It's not dangerous, but if it gets big enough, it can cause issues and need to be removed. And that can happen with cells that are totipotent. Just past totipotent is pluripotent. And the advantage is that the research has shown that there's no longer a risk of these abnormal formations. However, at this level, they can make every single type of cell. So in a sense, that's the ideal if you want a regenerative process that can make anything and everything if the goal is head to toe rejuvenation. from the pluripotent cell, you have the formation of what are called the three primary germ layers. This goes all the way back to embryology and how the processes of differentiating the layers and all the organs and tissues and structure of the body happens. So those three layers are called endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. So for example, the endoderm largely makes gastrointestinal and digestive structures like stomach, intestines, liver, and gallbladder, and so forth. The mesoderm, the middle layer, is what makes our support structures. So you have muscle, bone, cartilage, tendon, ligaments, and also fat. That's where the so-called fat-derived or adipose-derived mesenchymal stem cells come from. Then you have the ectoderm, and that's particularly brain, skin, and other structures. So each of these layers makes particular types of cells, and they integrate in the symphony to create the ultimate form. So a pluripotent cell can make any of the three germ layer types of cells, and then any of the types of cells of the body. When you get to germ layer derived cells, what's really been used a lot are the ones I just described, the ones from the mesoderm called mesenchymal stem cells. And these are particularly often derived from fat. And because of their germ layer, they are well designed to make those kinds of structures. They're designed to make muscle, bone, cartilage, tendon, ligaments. And if someone has a musculoskeletal issue, it can be a very good choice, especially if, say, there's injured cartilage. It's a very good type of cell to make more cartilage. There's two limitations of these cells in particular. One is that as people get older, these cells get less potent. Mm-hmm. So a session for a 20-year-old who's injured their medial meniscus of knee cartilage, they can work incredibly well. But if someone's 80 years old, at least biologically, because we're going to reshape that whole concept with, I think, what this whole field is doing, that they may work very poorly or not at all. So that's one consideration. And the other consideration is that they're really good for localized applications for repairing muscle, tendons, ligaments, cartilage. Yet they're not as useful if they're given intravenously, because fundamentally they're so big, they get stuck in the lung. Maybe a few get through, but not so many. Now, this may be useful. There is some work in improving lung conditions with those cells. And if that is a target organ, that could be a useful application. And once you get past these germ layers, there really isn't so much use of ectodermal and endodermal germ layer stem cells, at least not in terms of what's been generally done in people providing these services. And then at the furthest end, you have single tissue stem cells. So there's a stem cell in hair follicles that regenerates skin. There's a type of stem cell in the liver for that purpose. There are actually 3 different types of stem cells in the brain. So this idea that whatever you're born with just declines with age isn't really true. It's a balance between the ones that we make versus the rate at which they're being lost. But the brain and spinal cord can regenerate. It is designed that way. Mm. So there is what I would call this menu of different types of stem cells. And it's really important if one is going to decide whether a procedure is for them to really have an idea of what is the source of the stem cell. Is it their stem cell, which is called autologous? And those are generally felt to be quite safe. Or is it allogeneic? Is it from somebody else? There are uses for those cells, especially things like mesenchymal stem cells from the umbilical cord and certain other types of cells from other sources. Yet the realization is that unless these are a really close tissue match, they may not remain very long. They may serve for 6 weeks to start giving the chemistry that stimulates the cells to respond, yet they may not be particularly involved in long-term incorporation to regenerate the tissue. So that, in a nutshell, is the more complete overview of the different types of stem cells. Ideally, we should give them all different names and
Right.
say, I had a treatment with the uh, cartilage soldier cell
Right.
or the makes everything cell. Then it would be more clear. So this whole area is made hard to understand because the same term is used for what are actually fundamentally different types of cells with different types of applications and different types of appropriateness depending upon the particular client before a practitioner to match up what their issue is with what the most appropriate type of, not only what type of stem cell, we also believe, like you do, in stacks. So it's not even just providing the cells, it's what goes along with it: diet, lifestyle, exercise, nutritional metabolic interventions with elegant supplements that you formulated some, I formulated some. There's probably going to be some cross relationship between how we would use those protocols. There's use of peptides, which is becoming an even more and more sophisticated art. And then there's even the frequency vibrational aspect of it.
Absolutely. The biohacking and the stacking. I love it. What was your term? The biohack or the stack is the biohack?
Oh, it's a phrase I coined on the fly at Dave Asprey's biohacking event last September, which is the biohack is the stack.
Correct. Yes, I love that. So, just in layman's terms, it's like taking a bowling ball and trying to get it into all the parts of your body versus like a little peanut that is,
Uh-huh.
it has more ability to get everywhere. And I love the fact that the embryonic cells can cross the blood-brain barrier, and a lot of the mature stem cells that people are getting injected with cannot do that. And I don't know about you, but if you were to tell me one area of my body that I want to regenerate and keep young, it's my brain.
Hmm. I'd
So
agree.
that would be because it affects everything else. One question I have is these embryonic cells that are dormant in our body, which I love that they're my own, right? It's regenerative. There's no side effects. I remember asking you that question. What's the side effects or the negative or the risks to this procedure? And you said none because it's a regenerative process. But the fact that they're my own, but they're so small and they've been dormant, does that mean that they're protected from the toxicity in this world, from the diet that we might be taking in that might not be perfect, or the environmental toxins that we're being exposed to?
Excellent questions and a very good point. And let me make a quick terminology clarification. The full phrase for these cells is VSEL, which is very small embryonic-like stem cell. And the like is very important. So I would really just call them V cells or VSCLs because they are past embryonic. They're embryonic-like in that they still share some of the same proteins that early cells express, but they're no longer totipotent. They no longer can create a whole new person, which also means they're not at risk for forming benign accumulation of masses of cells in the body. So V cells would be the appropriate term. And what is really incredible, and it's a really very, very important point that you're making, is that because these cells are metabolically inactive, they are very resistant to poisonous or toxic stresses, even radiation. There was a
Mhm.
study that looked at whether cancer chemotherapy harmed the V cells, and the surprising result was as long as they're dormant, they were basically not significantly adversely affected.
That's
So
amazing. You know,
Right.
you're essentially taking your childhood self and becoming that youthful person again. So, my question, personally and selfishly, I'm 3 weeks in after my treatment. And for all of you wondering, we're going to get into the laser part of it because Dr. Todd has a laser that then can direct the cells to go where you want them to go and override what your body thinks is the most important. So maybe there's inflammation in my lower calf, but I don't know about it, but I want some regeneration in my brain. That's where the laser comes in. So what I did and what my focus was my eyesight. I have some blurred vision, and it's not from the eye degenerative properties themselves. It was from a car accident where I was hit on the left eye, and sometimes from stress or from structural issues that can cause some blurred vision. So that was area number one of importance. Digestion was very important. So we directed for the eyes, the spleen and digestion, kidneys, because my kidneys have always been weak, and then of course the brain. So before we started the procedure, I did an eye vision test, which I don't think I've done since high school. I've never worn glasses, 47 years old. My eyesight's been great. So, but found out that my vision was 20/30. And 32 minutes after the procedure, I was 20/20. So that is amazing. And 3 weeks later, my vision is holding. Unless I'm stressed out and the vision goes for that reason. But when I am myself, my vision is definitely 20/20 and may even be better. I can't wait to check it again. But so that was factually black, white results within 32 minutes of doing the procedure. So I want to get into the laser and directing how that works in directing the stem cells to the area of concern for the person.
Mhm. That is really the continuation of the story of the very first experiment, where we just literally shined the laser through the cells and hoped we see something. And then what we saw was so remarkable, the ability to actually direct the localization of cells and cause them to stick to each other. And without going into the deep physics, maybe we'll do that someday, but not today, that the way we've reconfigured the waveforms, that this signal goes much more deeply through the body. We even had someone feel that when the laser was going through someone's brain and the brain was next to it, that felt different when it went through someone's brain than if it went directly into their brain. So it suggests that we may be getting the signal all the way from one side of the skull to the other. And wherever that signal is, these cells are attracted not only to go there, but to remain there. In our earliest experiments with another type of stem cell, we found that we were actually increasing the expression of what are called cell adhesion molecules. And the simplest way to understand that is like cell Velcro, these little hooks made of protein that literally allows the cells to hold together. And this class of proteins was called integrins because they maintain the integrity of how the cells stick together to make an organ. So, as a reason for why this signal increases the probability that a stem cell goes there and adheres there, and that is how the cell knows what to become, is this fortuitous combination of waveform patterns and frequencies that not only attracts the cells to go there, but gives them the signal that they really should stick to each other. From a quantum sense, depending upon someone's priorities, when we apply the laser there, we're increasing the probability that a stem cell goes where that person would most benefit from it. The rest of the discussion. I think you really hit on it well. If you have an inflamed knee, but you really want your brain to get the regenerative effect to enhance cool things like memory and cognitive function, we've seen a lot of examples of that if we didn't have that override signal and you receive the cells, they would primarily go to the inflamed knee, and you wouldn't get nearly as many to the brain where you want them. And this provides an override signal so that we can still increase the delivery of the cells where we want them to go. And I would call those the two attractor fields, either the laser guidance signal as the override, and then wherever there's inflammation, which will also tend to attract the cells. And then whatever cells don't go to those places, we believe generally distributes throughout the body. So over and above the localized extra regeneration, there's also head to toe age reversal throughout all the tissues.
So, at what point after my treatment, that was 3 weeks ago, am I going to be 3 years younger? So, in other words, how long does it take for the one treatment to do its work and all of the really small baby embryonic like cells mature to do what they're doing?
hmm In terms of follow-up biologic age testing, one example was at about 2 months after getting this procedure, the person's biologic age had reversed 3 years. So the 3-year reversal we often see as early as 6 to 8 weeks.
Hmm.
What was interesting is that she checked again in 6 months, and she had gone from 3 years younger to 4.5 years younger.
Hmm.
So the age reversal effect, the regenerative effect, can continue. We believe it's probably usually 3 months, but we can see it for some months after that, even 6 months. If you want to retest and see where it's going, I would say 2 to 3 months would be a good point. And if you're really curious, you could check it 6 months.
So, just a couple other things that I noticed within the first couple weeks. And, I always say that God gave me my husband, Mike, who you met, as the biggest skeptic in the world to make sure that I know what I'm talking about when I talk about supplements and diet and all of this stuff, because if it doesn't work on him, he will tell me. So he kept saying to me, well, how do you feel? Do you feel like Superwoman? And I told him about my eyes. But the other things that I noticed was my skin. There was a different texture to my skin. It's cleared up. I also had an injury that I didn't even tell you about, Dr. Todd, and we did not focus on this. It's just a muscle from lifting weights that just kind of aggravates me, and it was gone. It was like I could start doing these exercises, and I hadn't been doing them in over a year. I noticed that. I noticed my digestion was better, my energy during my workouts, which I know you always say, for the first couple weeks, take it easy. You might feel like you can go run a marathon, but you want to take it easy and let the stem cells do their work, which is a really important point, because you feel so good that you want to go do something with it, but it's better to let the stem cells do their work. So those were a couple things that I noticed. You mentioned that you can do it with every treatment. You supposedly reverse age by 3 years. How often do you recommend people do it if they want to maximize their reversal aging?
Mhm. That is how you say the rejuvenate question. So if you're going to be a pioneer in rejuvenation, one of the super docs on my staff, Dr. Doug, coined the phrase rejuvenate. He probably did it first. I might have thought of it too, but I'll give him credit for it. And he's one of the amazing staff that we've had the good fortune to attract. And we are really working at a high level of sophistication with some of the most enthusiastic pioneers in rejuvenation. And because of what we've observed when we've looked at clinical results of various sorts, there's a sense that the age reversal technique is particularly potent for the first 3 months, so it may extend longer than that. So for the people that want to really see how much younger they can be biologically, our general recommendation is once a quarter or every 3 months. That's pretty much what I do, and what this group of people that we call rejuvenauts has been doing for the past 2 years, which is about how long we've had this testing. And we now have a group of people that's growing that biologically is anywhere from 12 to 18 years younger than their birth date age.
I love it. And I'm going to be one of them.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So we do the treatment, but everyone listening we want to talk about the stacking effect. So, of course, diet is important, getting rid of processed foods, sticking to the whole foods, maybe intermittent fasting, maybe staying away from the chicken and the amyloid proteins and sticking more towards wild animal protein and the vegetables that work with your body, doing your liver flushes to cleanse the liver, because we know that in the last 3 years, we've been bombarded with more toxins than ever. So all of these things are really important to do. But let's talk about some of the supplements, and I'm taking them. I would first want to just mention that the Accelerdyne iodine is really important for anti-aging, as mitochondrial health is super important when we talk about reversal aging, and the Accelerdyne iodine is not just antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, antiparasitic, but it boosts the metabolism and the thyroid health. It helps with apoptosis for DNA repairs, as well as stabilizing the DNA. Through what's gone on in the last couple of years, have to be careful with what I'm saying here. But it also is enhanced with frequencies to detox the body of radiation and heavy metals, graphene oxide, spike proteins, and it helps connect the your spiritual health with your body. And that's the thyroid is the bridge from the brain to the body. So that is really important. Another supplement of yours, Dr. Todd, is the Methusalife that I've been taking. Can you explain what that is and how that works with DNA and reverse aging?
Mm-hmm. So I've been passionate about this for a while, including before we actually began to do the basic science and then clinical work with stem cells. And there was this incredible paper published in 1970 by a scientist named Max Odense. And you're probably aware there are different animal studies that look at one supplement or one nootropic or other compound to modulate aging and reverse it in various ways, or at least extend longevity. And this study was so extraordinary because it was the greatest increase in longevity of a mammal that I'd ever seen. And since then, when I first saw the paper, I've not seen anybody top it. The basic experiment was they took old rats. So sometimes in longevity, if you want to see the effect, you want to start when the animals are really old, and you see if it makes a difference at the back end. So they started day 750, and this particular strain only lives 800 to 900 days. So it's like starting a longevity experiment with 90-year-old people.
Mm-hmm.
And the control animals got their usual animal chow. No other factors were changed. And as expected, the most they lived was 150 days after the experiment began. The treated animals received once a week injections of DNA and RNA. And the astounding result was that the minimum increase in longevity was 850 days.
Oh.
So the worst result was it doubled their lifespan. And the best result was 1,500 days, which nearly tripled their lifespan. So that was compelling. And that really gives rise to a question, because we don't usually see nutritionists saying that you've got to take your nucleic acids, your DNA and RNA. They'll talk about vitamin D and B12 and omega-3 essential fatty acids, but this whole idea of supplemental nucleic acids tends to be overlooked. The reason is that our body is able to make nucleic acids from certain amino acids and other simple building blocks. The key point is that under stress or even with aging, the body doesn't make enough for our optimum regeneration. So I created a formula that I really reviewed the literature on nucleic acid supplementation, how to create the ideal balances of the different bases of DNA and RNA, and the incredible literature that shows profound effects by providing extra amounts of DNA and RNA. And to make sure it's well delivered, this is applied as an oral spray, so there can be much more efficient direct absorption and utilization. To test whether this actually made a difference, we did a placebo-controlled double-blind clinical study at the University of Pretoria with middle-aged persons, 18 in the treated, 18 in the placebo-control group, and they were given a simple exercise recommendation. Walk 30 minutes a day briskly. Most people can do that. And they were excluded if they weren't physically able to do that. What was interesting, after 2 months, the placebo control group really had no significant change in their biometrics. However, the treated group, which was simply 6 sprays orally once a day with the active components as opposed to just the similarly flavored water, that in 2 months they gained 12 pounds of muscle, lost 15 pounds of weight, and had an 8% increase in their aerobic capacity.
Wow. Well, that might be part of the reason that I'm feeling better as well, because I've been taking it ever since my procedure as well. For everyone listening, you know that I only carry supplements that I believe in and that are cutting edge. And this is now on my website and available at SaraBantaHealth.com. So the other one that I wanted to talk about is the Systema that is coming soon to my website as well. Can you let us know what is that and how is that supporting stem cell?
Mhm. There's been a lot of work with the question, how can we stimulate our own internal stem cell production? And there are lots of things that do that. And part of the two most powerful are something called fucoidan, which is an extract from brown kelp that will stimulate the bone marrow to literally make more stem cells, but even more important, to release them into the circulation to start replacing worn out cells from head to toe. The other are called phycocyanins from blue-green algae. And those have also been reported. I think the number is up to a 20% increase. These the data I've looked at of literally releasing more stem cells in the circulation for all of the regenerative effects of your own stem cells. We then added multiple other nutrients that independently were shown to boost the production release of stem cells. This is something we recommend that it's taken when you go to sleep, because that's when we do most of our neuroregeneration and rebuilding our various sore joints after working out, or you might not be sore, but if you've stressed your system, it's a time when we really repair and regenerate. So it's 3 capsules at bedtime, and we like to call it a mini stem cell treatment while you sleep.
I love it. Well, we're almost out of time. I wanted to just touch on and I did touch on it, but I want you to emphasize on why there is minimal, if no side effects to your stem cell treatment.
hmm The biggest factor is that we're not putting in anything that wasn't there already. So we simply draw 6 tubes or 60 cc's of blood for the basic procedure, sometimes more if we're doing more advanced procedures and protocols. And from that, we separate, concentrate, and then we use the laser to awaken the cells out of the metabolic dormancy. And we've done that at a sophisticated lab in Manchester, England, with one of our colleagues who was part of a Nobel Prize winning team. So it's pretty good science. And we've shown that this process very efficiently awakens the cells out of dormancy. And what's interesting, the number of cells we count is 2.5 times greater immediately after awakening them with the laser. And we believe we're actually making the numbers more countable. I can go into the science of that on a future conversation when we talk about the biophysics of that. So, what's relevant is that we awaken your own cells out of slumber so they can be active to do what they're designed to do, which is regenerate and repair. They do occasionally wake up under big stress, like a heart attack, stroke, motor vehicle accident. So they do have a design where they can awaken, but they usually don't unless there's something that causes them to. And because they're already your cells, that the only particular, if you want to call it, side effect that people may feel is that a small percent, maybe ballpark 10 or 20, may feel an increased need to rest for a few days. And we believe it's these regenerative cells that want to make things really young and robust. They make their own growth factors and regeneration factors. When the body really wants to regenerate, what do we tend to do? We tend to retreat to our cave and rest. So sometimes these growth factors, we believe, are literally giving people the message you really need to relax, rest, and allow the body to regenerate before you take up your full usual activities. Other people may be energized right away, sometimes have trouble sleeping the first day or two. So it can go either way depending upon what makes a given person unique. I believe everyone is different and people may respond in different ways. And usually that at most lasts a few days, rarely a week or so. And once that early burst of growth factors settles down, then people tend to come back to their usual and typically higher level of energy.
Amazing. Well, we're out of time, and I want to make sure everyone knows that if you go to my website, SaraBantaHealth.com, you will see health partners, and Dr. Todd is under there. And if you want $1,000 off of this treatment, you can use coupon code SaraBanta. But we will also have a QR code there for a free book. Is that correct, Dr. Todd?
Yes, we talked about the Methusalife formula, and I've got this fun little book called Growing Younger that goes into the story of creating it, as well as the tremendous literature showing huge regenerative effects from different studies of the nucleic acids. And then there are other formulas that we've applied to clinical study and have those results. So Growing Younger is really about the nutritional metabolic way to get younger till we add more about the cellular side of the equation. So if you really want to understand it and see the references, it's a fun reference to get into.
Amazing. And if you guys are all listening and you have questions for me about my experience, just email me through the website. Happy to answer it. And I have this belief that Dr. Todd will be back on our show because we will be working together closely in bringing the most cutting edge age reversal protocols and devices and supplements and the stacking, right? It's all about stacking all of these amazing things together to optimize your health. So thank you, Dr. Todd, and thank you everyone else for joining us today. If I can help you, you can contact me directly through the website, SaraBantaHealth.com. Happy to put together a protocol for you. What did you learn today? Have you thought about stem cell treatment? Leave a comment below and let me know. Join the free group coaching on Telegram with the link below. I teach you on a daily basis with tips and tools to enhance your health, and you will be a part of that like-minded group to support you on your journey, in addition to truly taking control of your health. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram under Accelerated Health Products and across over 100 channels under Accelerated Health TV and radio show. If you like what you heard today, if you learned something, please hit the subscribe button and share with a few of your friends. Join me every Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific and Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific live. And you can use the coupon SaraBanta for the stem cell treatment, or welcome 10 for all of the supplements, including Methusalife, on the website. Thanks again for joining us here, and have a great week.